Hey guys, welcome to the LifeHack Show. It's Greg Sellar here once again, and this week I've got my very special guest host, Mr. Tom Chapman.
Hello, Gregory.
Hello, me. So we're here at Bondi Radio. It is an amazing summer's day. Can you feel it heating up?
I'm just so excited about not only this broadcast, but the lunch afterwards.
Yes,
I'm looking forward to a cocktail.
We're going to lunch afterwards. So Tom and I do know each other, have known each other for a long time. We'll explain some of our personal history, not necessarily in the show, but when we come back to you guys as viewers. But for now, thank you for joining us. This is episode 6, and we are about to go live on Bondi Radio. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the LifeHack Show with Greg Sellar.
Broadcasting from the world-famous Bondi Beach.
Hello, welcome to the LifeHack Show. This is episode number 6. My name is Greg Sellar, and this is our weekly mashup of all things designed to hack into the status quo. So what we're doing today, as always, is we are ripping into those unhelpful and unproductive thinking and behaviors in the hope for some better outcomes. As always, stunning outcome today. My special co-host is Mr. Tom Chapman. So Tom's been working in the corporate world for over 20 years.
God, that long?
Let's just put a number on it right now.
Oh, my God.
He's been working in change management and project management as a consultant, and he's worked really closely in the leadership space as an expert with huge companies, massive brands, and quite wide-ranging as well. Anyone from Toyota to Westpac, which is a bank for our overseas viewers, and of course the iconic Australian brand Qantas, which you're still dipping in and out of.
Yeah, still go back to Qantas. Very proud. I think all of us who work with them in some way, feel very proud when we see the red tail go overhead, particularly here at Bondi Beach. If the planes go overhead, you can't get more Australian than looking up at a Qantas plane from Bondi Beach.
And we might get your favourite Qantas story.
Oh my God.
Maybe the one about the dog later on in the break.
Oh, yeah, that's a little classified. There's a few classified stories, Greg. We'll need to think about that.
We'll leave that one for another time. So you've done a lot over the 20 years, like I said, working with huge brands, iconic brands in that project management, change management space, but you've evolved and you're now working as a career coach. So for anyone who doesn't understand what a career coach is, I'd say I'm 80% of the way there. Wagwan.
What is it about?
Yeah.
I guess when I moved myself from finishing one of my full-time roles, I was gifted some sessions with a career coach as part of my, outgoing package. I put my hand up to leave the company for reasons that I'll explain to you a bit later. But I was gifted some time with a career coach to help me redefine my goals, redefine what it was that I wanted to do, what it was that really mattered to me as a set of values in my work, and drew then a strategy and a set of outcomes that I wanted to achieve. And funnily enough, I wanted to become a career coach. So I didn't know anyone in that industry necessarily, and I'll tell you my story a bit later of how I got into that industry, but it's what I do now. I see clients, usually about 5 clients a day, a few days a week, and it's really a holistic journey into thinking about what's important to you at work, what matters, and how can you create that on a daily basis in the work that you do for money. You can do lots of things, I guess, voluntarily, but you want to be paid for the things that you're passionate about as well. So yeah, that's part of my journey.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
paid for what you want to do as a passion. So that's great. So what percentage of the people who actually come to you do you think are ready for the change, want the change, versus being pushed into it or forced into some level of change?
Yeah, it's a good question. A few people come to me privately. I do see private clients as well through referrals and recommendations. And often it's those people that are saying, I want to make a change somehow. I want to somehow take my career in a slightly different direction, a completely different direction, and they're thinking about it, but they're already in employment. They're already in their current job, and they're thinking about making that change. But the majority of work that I do for a company I work at in the city is for people who have been made redundant. There's so much change going on in industry, there's so much disruption that the idea of a redundancy now doesn't have the same sort of stigma that it used to. It's quite common. If you go to a lunch here at Bondi on a Sunday, you're more than likely to be sitting with people and hearing that they've probably had at least 1 or 2 redundancies in their time. So they're coming to me to say, I've finished my role, I need some help. And the interesting thing is when they get there, most people have said something along the lines of, I've been thinking about this for quite a while. I've been thinking about this in my mind. I just haven't done anything about it. But now that I guess the role or the choice was made for them, they are now in a position to actually make some conscious change and really, head towards a goal or something that they've been thinking about with intent, with real intent to go, this is what I want to do and this is how I'd like to design it.
So I find it really interesting because, you and I, like I said, we know each other. And I'd say if we're not already at that point, like for me personally, I'm very, very, very close to the point of doing exactly what I want in terms of working with the right people and, doing what I'm passionate about. What stops people from making a career choice based on passion versus, how do they actually end up in the wrong career?
In the wrong career, or I guess doing something that they're not particularly thrilled about and doing something that they're not really interested in. I think it's a case of that. First and foremost, the Maslow's hierarchy. Do you remember that from school?
The good old triangle.
Most people know the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Look it up now if you don't know what I'm talking about. But it's a pyramid which says that at the base we have to look after our financial and survival needs first. We need to have a home, we need to have money and food and all those basics. Then we can work on the higher priorities of life, being relationships and moving up to what's called self-actualization, which at the top of the pyramid says, I now feel as though that I have fulfilled all of those things and I'm also working at my sort of purposeful work. So definitely, I think for a lot of people that are already in their roles, the idea of shaking that pyramid, the idea of taking out that bottom layer rocks the entire pyramid so much. And it also takes an enormous amount of work. It is a campaign, something we'll talk about a bit later. It is a campaign that you have to do to over and above your current job if you want to actually make side steps into a new career. Just going and meeting with people, doing interviews, it's a lot of work. But primarily, I think most people aren't doing it because it just shakes the foundation too much. People think, oh well, maybe I'll be jumping from the frying pan into the fire. Perhaps it's better the devil you know. This is comfortable. Comfortable's not so bad, is it?
Yes,
so,
comfortable's like the worst thing. In fact, that's one of the whole ideas behind this show, is to get people out of their comfort zone, to try and rock the boat a little bit more, because like you say, most people are coming to you saying, oh, I'd been thinking about that, I probably had wanted to change anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I guess we do have to throw in there financial realities. There is the fact that we live in a beautiful city here in Sydney. It's a pretty expensive city in the world. So there are financial realities of having to meet your rent and do those things. But we can also, I work with so many people who have this desire and actually say, I'm going to do this, and they do it, and they do it successfully and realise it wasn't as hard as they thought it was going to be. It wasn't as threatening. But of course you can only say that in retrospect, can't you? But that's my job. My job is to be there with you, hearing what it is that matters most, hearing what it is that you really want to do, and then help you take the right steps so that you're not doing it totally, there is some risk involved, but we also don't want to completely collapse your life either. So I help you do a step change process as well through that.
And so if you had like 2 or 3 questions that you ask, or people come to you to ask them, like what are the questions that they're not asking themselves?
About their career?
About their career. Like if they're in their job and thinking, well, this is all comfortable, I'm not necessarily ecstatic, but I'm okay, I tolerate it, it provides a check at the end of the month that pays my rent. What questions aren't they asking themselves that when they come before you, you're asking them, and all of a sudden they have this aha moment?
I think the main thing is, what is it that you would love to be doing the most in your week? We can't design a perfect job. We can't, I feel as though I've got a close to perfect job at the moment, but it's what do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? I think there's a very big difference between what you can do you can be very competent at something. For example, if you are an accountant, you might be fantastic at accounts and fantastic at numbers, but there could be a whole side of yourself that goes, I'm good at that, but I actually don't like it. So there's a big difference between competence, i.e. what I'm good at, and preference, which is what do you want to do? What do you have to do versus what do you want to do? And that's the first question. I think the next level of that too is, how hungry are you for it? How much does this matter to you?
Yeah.
How much? Because probably something we want to talk about is that is a primary motivator. You have to be really hungry to make these sort of changes, to rock the bottom of that pyramid. You have to be really hungry to go, I want to do this. People will only do it when they're really, really uncomfortable. As I said, a lot of people coming to me are doing it because they've had no choice. Their job has been taken from them, now they have to make those steps. But for those that are already comfortably in employment, it's what is it that's pushing you to make this change. Let me be clear that some people, I've got a colleague and a friend recently who said, I cannot stand working with my manager. And that is actually a big one. People say they don't leave jobs, they leave managers. And I think we see the stats. We see the stats in that, which is a lot of people get so uncomfortable or cannot work with their manager, they want to make a change, either internally in the company or externally. Or, this job is killing me. This job, it's so boring, it's so lifeless, it's so not what I want to be doing, and I get out of bed in the morning and I just feel sick. I get out, and you know what? Your body is telling you something at that point. At that point, you should be coming and seeing me, because your body is saying to you, this job is not good for you. This job and its environment, for all the different reasons that we can talk about, is not working for you.
And you put you coined that phrase, what was it? The 60 minutes.
Phenomenon. Oh yes, the 60 minutes test. So a lot of people, they say that on things like Seek and those sort of job boards, see a particular spike in their searches on a Sunday night, between usually about 5 o'clock and 11 o'clock on a Sunday night. Because, and the 60 minutes test is the one where you're watching 60 minutes, you hear the ticking of the clock, you know soon you've got to go to bed on Sunday night and wake up on Monday and go to work. And the 60 minutes test is, are you feeling sick as the 60 minutes credits are coming to a close, because you know tomorrow's Monday and you've got to go to work. So
that's a really helpful test. So this Sunday night, for those of you not in Australia, 60 minutes, what would we call it? It used to be
current affairs.
Well, it used to be serious current affairs, and now it's a bit like frivolous.
It's not in America. It's still good reporting in America.
Well done, America, for staying on brand and on track. But anyway, it plays on Sunday night here. So that's a really good test to be able to do it. All right, so let's say they don't pass the 60 minutes test. Let's say they get to that point, they're feeling sick, it's physiologically playing out with them. How do you think it psychologically plays out when they're showing up at work? So they do rock up at 9 o'clock. What aren't they doing that maybe they should be doing, and how does that play out?
As in, if you're hating your work but you still have to go?
Well, it's that idea of like absenteeism versus presenteeism. You know, what happens in presenteeism when has anyone ever shared with you ideas or told you stories of, stuff where they're just rocking their C
Oh my
game?
God, I wonder what the percentage of people is that actually just show up to work on a Monday or every day and they're just going through their motions. I suspect, it's just a gut feel, there's no stats on this, but I suspect it's probably 50 to 70% of the workforce. I've seen stats in different studies that say it's pretty much 90%. Most people are going through the motions, and it's only the really brave and the hungry that are being entrepreneurial and actually aligning themselves to their, I don't want to say a higher purpose, but certainly to that inner purpose of, this is the work that I love, this is the work that fits me, and I do it well because I love it.
Yeah, it's funny that like Martin Seligman has his PERMA, when you talk about like the idea of flourishing or being in that state of flow, because he wrote that book on happiness, and then was like, it's too one-dimensional. One of his students came to him and said, and so PERMA is, positive emotion, engagement.
Engagement's a big one.
Relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. So can you actually get to the end of the day and say, look, what I did today, I did accomplish something? Because there's that idea of happiness, like everyone's pushing happiness. Happiness workshops on happiness, books on happiness, the happy manager, the happy workplace, the happy CEO, and it's like, but in actual fact, it's very surface level. If you don't have, as you said, about that meaning, that sense of accomplishment or that engagement.
And it's what does it mean to you? Because a corporation could define its values. I've always had a lot of problem with, we're supposed to go through the values of the company, and I'm like, values are very deeply held by an individual. So engagement and what matters to you and why you're there and what is the reward. Is the reward financial? For some people, the reward is absolutely about the prestige and the money and the position and the place they work. But for other people, it's very intrinsic. It's about, I believe in this brand. It may be a non-for-profit, or there's a sense that I'm connected. I love Qantas. I still go back and I love Qantas because it's an iconic part of Australia. It's an iconic airline in the world scale, and I love aviation as well. So it's really exciting to bring, I think, my talents into the context of a company like Qantas, because I think it's a really great mashup. There's so many great jobs at Qantas. You can dream of almost any job that you want. Qantas has that job for you if you're lucky enough to work there. But the engagement piece can be just something you said before too, Greg, was even if it's just the feedback that you get, the recognition from human to human, that's a foundational thing that we started at Qantas in our leadership program as foundation one. The base of the pyramid is, as a leader, recognize what your person has done today. I saw Greg actually phone that customer and win him over, do those sorts of things. And I just want to say thank you for doing that, Greg. I noticed it and you did a great job. It doesn't have to be about a sit down and a whole, let's talk about what happened. It's just over the partition. It's just saying to someone in the corridor, thanks so much for what you're doing. Then you've been recognised that the work you did today was worthwhile. It sounds small, but it's actually enormous. It can actually change cultures. Those simple little things change the game because of the simple needs of humans.
So, last question before we head into a music break. Why do you think people tolerate it for so long? If they're in that anything less than where they want to be, they're not living their purpose, they're tolerating it best, why put up with it? Let's say the finances out. So let's say the financial can be satisfied, although I recognise that's a pretty big thing, right?
It's foundational. Yeah.
What else?
It's just the unknown. I think it's just that we get into a position, we think, well, as I said, the time it takes to do it outside of the hours of your current job, and we also don't know what we're up for. Perhaps we worry that we're going to stretch ourselves so far that we're going to fall off the cliff, or we're going to fail in terms of what it is that we're going to do next. But, that's part of my job also, is to test the waters about, are you doing what we call sometimes same job, same industry? Are you going to do a different job in the same industry? Or are you going to try a different industry but do the same job? To jump to do a different job in a different industry is the biggest and hardest thing to do, but it can still be done. People do it. But those side steps into, well, why don't I try doing what I do, perhaps in a different industry or a different context, or I'm doing a slightly different job. But, Qantas is another great example. You can do side steps from perhaps being a cabin crew member. We've had some great cabin crew members go on to fantastic careers in industrial relations and that, which build on what it is they're doing. So, I think in the end, it's only ever going to be fear, isn't it? The whole bottom line is fear. Oh my God, I might fail. I might fall off the cliff. And then where's my livelihood? Where's my money? How am I going to meet there's a lot of things at stake, but it's probably not as big as we're making out. But, for some people, that financial reality, we do have to take into account.
And also, you said before we came on air, the thing that you've recognised from all your experience is that literally 9 times out of 10, it does work out just by you doing it.
Yeah. Everyone that I work with has gone on to their next role. I think that's a really important recognition. There's so many myths we could bust just in the landscape of work. But at the moment, the Australian economy is doing well. We are in growth. And all of the clients that I work with are a little bit, but comparatively to other countries.
We're doing all right.
We're doing okay.
We're doing pretty good.
But the market is buoyant. Now, people will say to you, there's no jobs, there's nothing happening, but they're looking in a certain place for that. They're looking on the online job boards or perhaps through the recruiters. But we know, and perhaps we'll talk about this later,
we are going
that
to talk about
80% of the roles that are filled today, just if you think about all the jobs available in your city today, are probably going to be filled in a different way than those online job boards and the recruiters. 20% is those, 80% is what we call the hidden market, because it's done in a different, it's filled in a different way. And that is a really important key to why you should come and see me and work with me, because we'll help you bust those myths. It's how I won my role, and we'll probably talk about that, strategically a little bit later.
We are going to talk about it, so go grab a pen is my best advice. We're going to head into some music, so we will be back very shortly. Don't go away.
Pure Class A, high voltage, ultra live and direct. Bondi Radio.
So, thanks for sticking with us, viewers. We are not going anywhere. We're going to have a bit of a off-the-cuff talk with Tom, speaking of high performance and getting hungry. And
how long have we got?
What, you mean
As
overall?
in this music break.
We got as long as you want.
Really?
Yeah, we got... This song goes for 5 minutes, but if we want to start again with another song, we can go with another song. So, speak away.
All I was going to say was, in that section, I know we wanted to get out the idea that, it is really how hungry are you for it.
Yeah.
And now that we're in a music break, I think when you think about it, people who are in the performing arts, the pop stars, the musicians, the people who go on stage, the actors, there are people out there who, in that industry, you have to be hungry to succeed. Greg and I, of course, are massive fans of Madonna. Who else in the world is a greater example of sheer naked ambition?
I thought you were going to say, who else in the world is a Madonna fan? Because they're declining as the years go on.
Well, it's our generation. But I think what we were talking about in preparation for today was that it's people in the performing arts have to be super hungry to do what they do, because it's not well rewarded. The prize is very, very rare, but it's often that just being a performer, being someone in that space, takes a lot of commitment and hunger to do that. I was listening to a great podcast with Michael Patrick King, and of course most people know Michael Patrick King as the producer and writer of Sex and the City. He then wrote Two Broke Girls, he did The Comeback with Lisa Kudrow.
Yeah.
But his whole backstory is of being stand-up comedian in Hollywood, and how heartbreaking it was to be a nobody for 15 years, and yet he was driven completely by sheer hunger to perform, to be on stage, to do those. And that to me is the example of just how hungry you have to be.
I always think about dancers, just the talent that it takes to be a dancer, and yet you are one of a sea of people. And when you see those auditions, and it's just like number 32, 73, 102, step forward, the rest, thank you very much, and off you go. And you're just like, years of passion, dedication, working on it. The fact that you are still an amazing dancer, and it's just like, next.
Even in Vegas as well, if you go to Las Vegas, if you're fans of dance and performance, as you and I are, the amount of shows going on in that city on one night will mean that there are literally thousands of gifted dancers in that city that are in employment but don't get to stand out, don't get to be the star of the show. A lot of people from Think You Can Dance, I think I was looking at recently, have gone on to Britney's show. The prize is to dance alongside Britney. Ooh, almost fell off with you doing that. Having a Britney moment.
That was a joke, by the
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
It's one thing to be a Madonna fan. It's another entirely to be a Britney fan. I do you know what? I actually wouldn't mind, because I think some of her music, we're digressing here.
Are we talking Britney?
We are talking Britney. I wouldn't mind. I think some of her music is actually quite good in the dance genre, but it could be anybody singing. I'm like, I don't, and the fact that she never sings live. I get the idea that people sing the backing tracks, but never. Come on.
Well, if you don't have to, why would you? She can obviously come on, do a Britney drag show.
It's a Britney drag show.
She
That's what it
is playing to her strengths, which is walking around the stage, and not singing, which is playing to your strengths.
She's still got that classic Mickey Mouse Club walk, like that real 14-year-old strut that she's never quite got out of. Like, it's a performer's walk, and I'm like, girl.
It must be so hard for those backing dancers also to realise that, it really is the fact that she got the break for all sorts of great reasons. The pop songs are fantastic. The pop songs are fantastic.
They are good songs.
But, here are these people working it out with real gifts and real talents, and there's Britney getting paid millions to walk around the stage. But, hey, wouldn't we as well? We would be her. We would be doing that ourselves. So
I'd be doing it.
Yeah.
I'd walk on my own stage. All right, we're going to head back into the show. Here we go.
Pure Class A, high voltage, ultra live and direct. Bondi Radio.
What we're calling Chunk 2.
Oh, okay.
Not you.
Oh, gosh.
Chunk 2.
There's a whole thing that I could go there, but I won't. Yes.
Let's not. So, welcome back to the LifeHack Show. My name's Greg Sellar. My special guest co-host today is leadership expert, career change extraordinaire, Tom Chapman.
Extraordinaire, that's the one.
Extraordinaire. We'll go with that. So, just before the music, we were talking about what motivates people to change, maybe some of the reasons why we tolerate things so long, and we came to the conclusion a lot of it is that fear-based around what's going to happen, should I make the jump, finances are going to be affected, am I going to have to take a massive step back? So let's say they do make the change. Let's say they decide, yes, it's something I'm going to go for.
Can I tell you a story on that?
Please do.
Just before you ask the question. My pattern, because I think every person in their career has a certain set of themes and patterns. Where we're getting to now is exactly where I kept getting to in my career. 4 times it's happened where I guess I've chosen a particular career and I realise it's okay, but I can see the oxygen's running out and I'm going to become bitter and twisted and angry. And you know what it took?
More.
More bitter, twisted, and angry than already there. But you know what it took was I knew that I would sit there. I knew that I would just keep sitting there every day and I would become that person that turns up at the office like you were speaking about. And the only way for me to get out of that funk was to actually throw myself out of the job, to actually say, I'm going to leave, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but what that's going to do is force me to swim. It's going to force me to change, and it's going to force me to make choices, even though each time I had no idea what it was I was going to do next. So that was something in my pattern around, I guess, feeling that constriction and actually going, oh my God, I actually have to do something about this.
Yeah, it's funny as well because you can convince yourself in that period that your situation is unique. Because I had a similar thing in coming back from London. I was like, okay, do I keep doing the fitness industry thing or do I try and branch out? And organically stuff was starting to work and I could start to see a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. But there was a huge amount for me personally of wallowing in that whole idea of, nobody understands, what I'm experiencing right now. This is unique to me, and it's just not.
I can remember self-pity, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I can remember you sitting. I can remember you sitting in front of me saying, "Oh look, stop it, just stop it.
Stop your wallowing.
Stop your wallowing." Yeah, because stuff's good. I think it's also important when you were talking about sidestepping before as opposed to needing to start again, embracing what you've already done and taking the very best bits of what you've already done as experience to then use that as the springboard to move forward. Because when I wanted to come out of fitness, I was like, right, pull the shutters down, that life is now over, and now I'm going to hopefully try and start this new life. But it's kind of it's not an either or, it's an either and.
Yeah, you can keep doing whatever you've built your success on, then add on sort of perhaps a side sort of business, or add on to what it is that you've been doing in a slightly different way. But yeah, it doesn't have to be, I have to collapse my entire current role and start again from the beginning. Perhaps that's another thing we didn't mention in the previous chunk, was that perhaps people think, oh, well, I'm going to have to go right back to square one. And that is absolutely not the case. You might have to for certain jobs. Again, different job, different industry. You might need a new qualification. But most people, I don't know many people who go right back to the beginning and start again. So I think that's an important recognition.
Well, yeah, I think you know, to talk to that point, for me, it was identifying what I had done in my previous role that was going to be a strength for what I wanted to be able to do. And the fact that, you know, we would run training days and people would come in at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by 5 o'clock they'd be leaving with some skill or competency to be able to go back into their own workplace and do something. And you know, to achieve that in a day with 20, 30, 50, however many people, you were like, okay, well, there has to be value in that. So to then lift that and drop it into the corporate world or whatever, but I hadn't done that. I'd literally gone, it's fitness, it didn't count, you know.
You were looking at it the fact that, yeah, you were a fitness presenter, but you can actually lift the word fitness out of that title and go, I'm a presenter. You don't have to be an expert. I mean, it's always great to be very, very strong and clear about the content you're presenting. Yeah. But one of my jobs when I was early on, which I used to feel like a real fake at the beginning, but people used to say, could you please come and facilitate a day? We'll give you the subject matter expert on the topic, but they're not skilled in running the dynamics of a training day, how to introduce, how to pace, how to bring energy and the group alive, how to manage groups, all these things that to me were really second nature. But they would pay me, and over time I realised this is actually a skill set, because people don't want to do this. People's biggest fear is being a presenter in front of a group, etc. People were willing to pay very good money for you to be that person to stand up and facilitate that group. And I still get those roles now, which I enjoy, but I like to also have quite a bit of expertise on my side on what I'm speaking about. But I'm a generalist. We don't have to be a specialist in everything. You have skills which can transfer and be general to you know, other aspects of work you might like to do.
So, okay, they've made the decision, they're coming to you. How do you get people to create a vision of what they want to do in their ideal work, job, career?
Yeah, that's my favourite part of the coaching, is going into the person, not thinking just externally. We don't originally want to think about external goals or the external market or just matching ourselves to the market. We actually want to go inside, or what I call inside out, where you start thinking about what matters to me. I think we were talking last night, when I came out of Qantas, I had such an extraordinary experience over 7 years that I'd moulded and adapted myself to what Qantas wanted and needed me to be in the roles that I had. And then when I went overseas for a break after I chose to, you know, take a package and move on to new pastures, I kept doing this. I kept going, I need to take these robes off. And I didn't know what that was, but what I was trying to say to myself was, and I think this happens with most of us, we develop a bit of a corporate shell. We develop a bit of a layer around who we are and who the corporation wants us to be. And in career coaching, you're actually going, forget that, let's come back to you. Who are you? What are you about? What drives you uniquely? Because that's what I love about this work that I do every single person has a different set of circumstances, a different set of flavors, I guess we could call, in terms of what matters to them. And then it becomes, I guess, a set of standard coaching questions that perhaps I could ask you, Greg, like if we think about a couple of these things. Number one is, what would you like to do more of? If you're thinking about the sort of job that's ideal for you, what in your week or your work month would you like to do more of in your job? And then the converse question is, and what would you also like to leave behind? If you could let go and not have to do that anymore, what would you like to leave behind? So can I ask you either where you're at now or when you went through that process, what did you want to do more of?
Okay, hold that thought.
All right.
And the reason I want you to hold that thought is,
yes,
I would think that for somebody sitting in front of you asking them those questions, it could be, and probably is, for most people, the first time they've ever heard those questions. Because you don't get that with your parents. You don't get that at school. When I was at school, and we went and saw the career woman, who I think was also like the librarian or something. I just remember it because she had the most
career
horrible
/ librarian lady.
But she was notorious for her foul breath.
Okay.
Anyway, so
shout out to her.
Shout out to her. I don't even remember her name.
Let's
but
not.
She was notorious for her foul breath. Anyway, sitting across from her, it was like she would look at your grades. She would look at your grades and she would look at the type of subjects that you had chosen, which 9 times out of 10 you didn't even choose. You sat down with your parents as to what would be the trajectory that you should go on. And then she'd say, okay, well, here's how well you're doing. Here's what you're studying. Why don't you become a this? Why don't you become a that? And you're like, for me, it was so ridiculous. I think I did my year 10 work experience as a lawyer. Now, if you know anything about me, there are 2 different computer Microsoft programs that define my life. One is a Word document and the other is an Excel spreadsheet. If you want me to perform in any way, shape or form, give me a Word document. Because if you put an Excel spreadsheet in front of me, I literally close down. I don't want to see it. There's too many boxes. And put formulas in that, forget it. The minute it becomes mathematical, and all I saw was, when I went to this lawyer's office or solicitor, was just paper everywhere, piles of paper stacked up high. And I just thought, this is the worst.
Can't be it.
This is the worst, yeah. And so, I got to a point where I asked myself, what did I want to do? And thankfully, I just had the balls to be able to say, great, I want to be an aerobics instructor at the time, because I liked music and I liked movement. But for many people, they don't ask themselves that. So when they sit in front of you and ask that question you just asked me, they haven't actually ever thought about it before, or nobody's ever asked them what they want.
Well, even as a step prior to that in a longer program, I actually do exactly what you just said, which is, let's go back to when you were 15 or 16 years old. What topics did you love at school? What were your personal interests? And what were you starting to think about as a potential first step into either your higher education or the first job that you do? And we go back and we actually draw the maps and we find out, are there any buried passions? And it's a very common story that a lot of people have taken the jobs that their parents wanted them to do, or that their family thought would bring them the most prestige or security or whatever. And sometimes those careers have gone on to be incredible careers, in terms of status and reward, but the person, more often than we realise, underneath is actually going, why don't I feel this? It's supposed to be that I'm happy with the Mercedes-Benz and the house and the 2 holidays a year in the house in France, but underneath, this is not who I am. I would hear that probably in 50% of my clients. There's been a pathway where it went off the rails, but life just went on, and yet we've been ignoring all of those sorts of things. So you're exactly right. There's a huge market out there, I think, for some good questions, for school programs to be using some great tools to go into the person's natural orientations. Usually if you're good at something, it means you also enjoy it. It means you also, there's a flow. It's something we spoke about. One really important coaching question is, when are you in flow? When is it that you feel as though you're doing an activity either in your personal outside life or in your professional life that you know you're efforting, that you know you are doing work, but time just seems to fly. You are completely absorbed and you are completely in the zone, I guess. It's like that sporting analogy of being in the zone. Sorry?
Can I get in the zone?
Brittany again. Is there anything she doesn't know?
She keeps popping up.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, the question, when are you in flow? When is it? These questions, you're right, have not often been asked of people to them without any external influences around what they should be doing. My dad wanted me to go to ANU in Canberra and do an economics degree. I mean, oh my God, there couldn't be anything further from what I am or who I am or what it is I want to do. And so I did just choose an education degree because it was the nearest and I guess the thing that made me feel like there was a pragmatic result at the end of it. I chose it because I went, well, I get what I'm going to get at the end of it, as opposed to an economics degree. What the hell do I do with that? So, yeah. Spreadsheets.
You could do your own account. You could do your own accounts.
God, thank you. I'll outsource that.
I try and get my accounts done as quickly as possible, knowing that somebody else is going to look at them.
Yep. Just collect the info, pass it on,
get rid of
outsource it.
I never want to do it. I never want to see it.
As a good friend of mine says, throw money at the problem, outsource it.
Outsource. It's always a good thing. So, all right. So, what are some of the magic questions? I think you've mentioned 2 so far. What were you going to ask me?
So, well, when are you in flow?
When am I in flow? I am in flow when I am speaking in front of a group. So that could be in facilitation. Or it could be on a stage of some sort, but I love the dynamics and the nervous excitement of getting ready for it, of doing it, but knowing that I've done enough prep that unless the sky falls, it's going to be okay.
We say good planning leads to good presence.
Right.
Write that down, kids. Pop that on a T-shirt.
Exactly.
But it's that thing of you've got it all structured in your head, but then you can be on stage and flow with whatever it is that comes up for you.
And that is my favourite enjoyment is to know the structure and to just kind of
dip and weave with it.
Dip and weave, yeah. It's funny. Matt Church talks about like being the wizard when you talk about facilitation of like touching that area because they are kind of falling off a little bit, or it's like a giant standing over a cauldron trying to
it is because it's energy.
Magic.
Yeah, it's a group out there is an energetic dynamic, and you can see it as one solid group, or you can see it as a set of individuals and mini groups that you can stir up. And your job as a presenter and a facilitator is to connect with those people and bring it alive and bring energy alive, because otherwise it can very quickly sink down.
And we've all been there. Boring training.
So you're in flow because of the, I guess the structure that you bring. And then the question perhaps just into the future, like I asked, what would you like to do more of? And what would you like to leave behind?
Good question. I'm loving the idea. This is so lazy of me. I'm not lazy because I do work out and I do my own training. But up until a certain point, I've got a cross section now of workshops that are very mind thinking, behavior change focused, and I still have the trail end of workshops that involve running and jumping.
Right.
So if I can get rid of the workouts within my presentations, and just concentrate on actual learning and education, then that's...
So you don't want to do all the physical running, jumping,
which
exercise part.
Yeah, which is not to say I don't like doing running and jumping and exercise, but I want to do it for myself.
Yes.
And I also love the consumer world. I love the idea that, we're talking, hopefully people are watching or listening somewhere, and that they have simple strategies that maybe they hadn't thought of that can make massive changes to their life. And sometimes in some of my trainings we talk about the 1%. Just that 1 or 2 little things that can make huge amount of difference to them versus me probably working in an industry where I'm 25 years down the track and I'm trying to reinvent the wheel to a very tired, you're not tired, but to an audience that almost thinks they know it better, which I'm okay with. And in some respects, they actually do know it better, and I'm okay with what I know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I want to do probably less on the industry side of things and more on the consumer side of things. That
the
would be my
business
direction.
rather than the pure exercise, and let's actually do the exercise as the piece of the presentation that I'm teaching you.
Yep.
I want to go more into the mind, the mindset, that sort of stuff. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I find the consumer world less judgmental.
Okay, well that could be a mindset as well.
Could
because,
be a mindset.
you know, again, every industry, I've worked for 70 companies. This sounds really wanky, but
Have a
but I always say to people, every different business I go into has a different ecology because the dynamics are different. Qantas itself, I keep coming back to Qantas, is 63 little businesses made up under an airline, and each one of those businesses has a completely different mindset and idea about who they are and what they contribute, etc., for all sorts of different reasons. So yeah, I think you've got to kind of go in and, you know, get what you want out of it. And one of the last questions, I'm going to throw this at you, I'm not sure whether or not you'll be able to answer, but at the end of a long series of questions and thinking, and, you know, we can go 2 or 3 sessions really teasing out your values as well. Your values are a really important question, but the one that I can ask there is, after all is said and done, what matters most?
This. So just to give you reference, we're sat here on Bondi Beach. It's Tuesday at coming up to 1 o'clock. And what matters to me most is that I have the flexibility in my life to do what I want. And so if I want to spend the afternoon following today's broadcast, having lunch with you, and going up the hill and maybe doing a few emails, but then walking the dogs or whatever, I can. Now, I can't do that every day. I have to work. But even in the idea that I work from home, when I'm working on stuff that I love, it doesn't feel like work. When I'm doing the contracts that I'm doing, that doesn't feel like work either. You know, even though I've got to travel.
You're in flow.
Yeah.
You're actually in flow of work that's meaningful and contributing. Yeah.
Right, and so that idea of doing the stuff that I love with the people I want, and being able to make my own day, that's what's important to me. Flexibility. Flexibility
and autonomy, I would suggest, probably is in there as well, because you're not having someone look over you. There's so many things out on the web. You can understand that on LinkedIn, or if you just Google career sort of values or whatever, you're going to get 100 million hits around, you know, the way to carve this up. There's no silver bullet to any of this, and that's probably an important point to make, is I don't believe you're predestined to be doing something, but you certainly have lots of talents and things to contribute to an organisation. But there's no silver bullet. But just on what you spoke about there, there's a 9 different, what do they call, career anchors?
I'll do the
9. 9 career anchors. It's a gentleman called Shine, S-C-H-E-I-N, the Shine Career Anchors. And they come down to the bottom line of what you value the most. Flexibility and autonomy is a huge one for people these days. And technology is meaning that we can do this a lot more. We can do things where we don't have to present ourselves at the office. We can do the work that we want to do from home because it's becoming more flexible. And with technology and the digital age and robotics coming online soon, a lot of those sorts of jobs mean you don't have to do the painful commute to the office if you don't have to. But reducing it down to that bottom line probably takes a bit of time, but the Shine Career Anchors are to do with sometimes entrepreneurship or whatever. Mine is lifestyle. Mine is exactly what you're saying. It's lifestyle to go, at the moment I work 2 to 3 days a week by choice. I could work more, but why? My particular value system says I get to come and have lunch with you, sit at a beautiful beach, take my time, go and see my family, you know, to be with people and have, you know, I guess, activities that are really purposeful and meaningful to me. That's my value. Some people will have prestige or managerial power. They like to actually have very, very challenging things at business. Again, what I love about this work is every person that you meet, never assume that their values are the same as yours. You have to tease that out of people and get them to remember that that's their unique set of values and set of conditions that can lead them forward to what is an ideal working circumstance for them.
We are on track, and we are also going to a little bit of music. We'll come back with chunk 3 and end our show shortly. Thanks for listening or watching, and we will be back in just a second.
That always reminds me of Alan Partridge.
Pure Class A, high voltage, ultra live and direct. This is Bondi Radio.
So, we're almost there. Time flies
so
when you're in
excited for lunch.
the zone. When you're in the zone.
We're just watching all these people be served beers and cocktails and chips, and it's such a good day. I was just saying to Greg before, summer's here. Don't you think? Today feels like we're practically in the zone of summer.
Yeah, it's amazing to also think, like, you look at the forecast and you see like 23, 24. Some days to me, 23 can feel 23, and other days, like today, 23 looks and feels like it's about 29, 30.
I don't really care what the air temperature is. I care what the water temperature is.
Tom's all about the water temperature.
I am tracking every day on the sea temperature gauge. I'm looking at the Wiley's bars and going, who's telling the truth about the water temperature? Because as soon as it hits 20 degrees, I'm in for the summer. But that's not yet. It's still only about 19, which feels a bit refrigerated.
Apparently that makes the difference, the 1 degree. Nobody else can work it out, but Tom Chapman.
I'm a sensitive soul. I have a very strong sea temperature barometer.
What would you liken yourself? If you had to liken yourself to any marine life, what would it be?
Dolphin.
Oh, there you go.
Absolute dolphin. My favourite animal. I just love the fact that they, like, I don't think I'd like this, but I admire that they're always so happy in the ocean, athletic and friendly. There's a certain friendliness to dolphins that I like.
I had a friend,
sociability.
I had a friend, Monica, in the UK. Bizarrely, she was walking behind me and she was like, "You're just such a polar bear." I think that was her way of calling me fat.
Lovely.
Yes.
I'm not going to comment.
No,
Moving on to your next segment.
We'll move on to the next segment. So, good. Are we having fun?
Yeah, lovely.
It is great that you can join us. And just for people who want to be able to, we'll talk about this at the end of the show, but, you know, do you consult, do you career coach, do you do what you do with members of the public? They can get in touch with you.
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. So if you just type in Tom Chapman, usually Tom Chapman Qantas will get you to me because there's a number of us. But yeah, Tom Chapman, and I think my tagline's something like wise guidance for career, people, leadership and life. I don't really do life coaching. To me, it's about the work element because all the other life parts fold in, but the lens that I love in my coaching is the fact that it's geared towards an outcome of creating a work life that you want.
Good. All right. So we'll go over those details again at the end. We're just going to wait for this song to finish. Probably not. We'll give it another 2 minutes or so. What you got?
Pardon?
What you got?
What? I mean, what are we talking about?
We can talk about anything for 2
I
minutes.
love it. 2 whole minutes. All right.
World is your ocean. Pick a topic, any topic.
The same-sex marriage, do you think it's going to be... Give me a number. What do you think? Is it going to be 70%? Is it going to be 60%?
It's going to be 62-38.
That's what you think?
Well, it just always is, isn't it? Any poll where somebody wins, it's always 62-38.
All right.
So
yeah, that sounds about right. I can't imagine it'll be 80%. It's going to... Yeah, you're right. It's going to be around the 60-something mark of yes, with still your conservative kind of... Yeah.
So for those of you listening elsewhere, the same-sex marriage debate
opinion poll. It's not even binding.
The result
it's only an opinion poll.
The result in Australia gets brought out tomorrow. So Tom's just asking me the prediction of the percentages, and I say 62-38 in favour of yes. So we'll see what happens.
And just remember, it's an opinion poll. So the current government doesn't necessarily, a number of people in that government don't want it. So don't think tomorrow it's the done deal. There is still a number of pieces of legislation to be passed through Parliament before it can happen. And I suspect that there's going to be quite a bit of dilly-dallying, stretching.
Stretch it out, drag it out.
I was asked, do you want to join a lunch tomorrow? I said no, because it's just an opinion poll. I will celebrate when it's done and it's through, because, yep, that's the next thing. So
watch this space.
We can all celebrate it, the 40th anniversary of Mardi Gras next season.
All right. And with that in mind, let's celebrate. Moving on to chunk 3, the campaign.
Pure Class A high voltage, ultra live and direct. Bondi Radio.
Can I just say, that gets me every single time. Every time you press that button, it's just like Alan Partridge. If you don't know who Alan Partridge is,
all our UK, it's Steve Coogan, right?
Yes.
Yeah, look him up.
Norwich Knights.
Norwich Knights. Maybe that's what we should have called the show. The LifeHack Show, in brackets, Norwich Knights. So we're moving into the final chunk. I don't know why we're calling it chunks today, but we're just calling it
segments.
Chunks. Segments, that's a good word for it. So you got the hunger. You take the next step, they come see you, they've made the decision, they're going to change, they've aligned their values, they figure out what it is they want to do. What happens next?
What do we do to bring that into reality? Very good question. So yeah, I guess that middle phase is about creating the vision, teasing out all the things that you want to do more of, less of, that you're in flow, that you can imagine, I guess, that are really important to you in terms of the design of a job, design of work. So that doesn't mean that the journey leads to a job title. It does not lead to you and I going, you are now going out to be a ... What it means is we have to go through and think about all sorts of different things that could potentially meet the criteria that you've designed. So what I recommend from then on is you will be developing what I guess we call a campaign. You will be developing a way of going out to your network and telling them the fire, the passion, the vision that you've created, and how is it that you would like to take your next steps, and enlist them as a coach, as a mentor for just 15 or 30 minutes. Let me tell you a story how I got my job as a career coach. Yeah? So when I came out of Qantas, everybody asked me and said, what are you going to do now? Because I think they thought I was going to be there for the rest of my life. It was such a great job, so many great benefits. But when I left, people said, what are you going to do now? And because I went on a journey with a career coach to do career coaching, it's kind of like the Russian nest of dolls. I didn't know anyone who was in the industry. I didn't have any necessary connections in that space. But I did realise this was an industry, and there are quite a number of players in this field. So as I was taught, it was leveraging my networks, but those networks came to me. My personal and professional networks just started asking questions. I was doing a very small contract at a company that I'd worked at previously. I said, I need to stop doing this now because I want to do the job that I've chosen. And the lady from Melbourne, who I'd never met before, she'd come up for a handover of the job that I was doing. She said, well, what are you going to do now? And I said, I really want to get into career coaching. And she said, I know such and such of Right Management, a company over in Darling Park in Sydney. And I was like, well, who's that and who are they? She was willing to set up a coffee meeting, and I went and met with this gentleman to ask about who are the key players in the industry, how do you get in, what do they look for, what sort of recruitment companies or what recruitment methods do they use? Do you recommend going to certain groups or being part of certain LinkedIn memberships? How is it that you recommend that I do that? This kept happening over and over again because I think people were picking up that I was so excited to discover the next step. I had a really compelling vision about what it is that I wanted to do. And the way I landed my role at the company that I'm at now was a friend of mine came down to the beach on a day like today, asked me the question, what do you want to do next? And I said, I want to do career coaching. And he said, I know a lady at my work who does that. And he was an accountant in that business. It actually wasn't that he was in that industry. He just went, I know someone who does that. Would you like to meet her and have a coffee and ask her some questions? And that's exactly how it happened. I met with this person. She didn't know me from a bar of proverbial soap. And I used that time to say, who are the key players in this industry? How did you get in? What did you do to get to where you are now? What do you recommend to someone like me about the steps that I potentially need to take? And most importantly, who else do you feel I should speak to? So we always say gain 2 more referrals. You know, it's what we call the research approach. Gain wisdom, seek advice, and get 2 more referrals because you're asking people to come in and get inspiration and ideas. Don't do it over the phone. Don't do it, on Skype. Have a coffee with that person. Sit them down face to face because what that does is give them the space to make connections and think about who they know in their personal and professional networks that could be useful for you to connect with and maybe have opportunities. This whole networking piece or tapping what we call the hidden market is to me the revelation in this space. If my job now was just to help you construct a resume, which I can help you do, or just design your LinkedIn, I'm not interested. Other people can do that. We do that as part of your process and part of your value proposition. But the creativity and the resourcefulness that you can show in leveraging your personal and professional networks is the key.
Great.
That was a very long answer, sorry.
No. But I think that was going to be my next question, and also final question was like, is that the best way? Is networking probably the best way over, let's say, trawling through countless job recruitment sites or LinkedIn, for as great as they are?
People will probably be more willing to give you a go if there's some sort of personal connection or lead through, your connections and your network. If you're suddenly making a job, if I just applied for career coaching, online, firstly, those jobs aren't listed. There is nowhere that you will find a job for a career coach on LinkedIn because they're very coveted and they're highly prized. So again, the hidden market meant that, I couldn't find that through the traditional channels. Yes, if you are going to be an accountant or something that's fairly stock standard, your LinkedIn jobs, will be there. But will people make the connection from what it is that you've done to where you want to go? We've always got to structure your resume and LinkedIn into a future state. It's not about where you've been, it's about where you want to go and why. But even then, most recruiters and most hiring managers who don't know you will probably read that and not quite make the connection unless you've been really explicit. So yes, 20% is your old traditional channels of job ads and recruiters, but 80% of the opportunities available to you today, this month, this year, in the area that you live, is probably in what's called that hidden market. And that is such an important piece of the process to also make you feel as though it's possible. I think going through classic job ads, applying can be a very dispiriting and demoralising process in this day and age. So you will find that people are willing to help you and people are there to give you ideas, and it's very, very uplifting and encouraging on your journey to find that people want to help you towards your goal.
Great. So if you need some help, after all that Tom's told you today with all the fantastic advice, if you need a little bit of a push or to draw out what it is your true purpose is in your career, where can they find you? How can they find you? How do they get in touch?
Ironically, and of course, it's on LinkedIn, isn't it? It's on LinkedIn. If you just look up Tom Chapman, usually if you put Tom Chapman Qantas, you'll absolutely find me. My tagline says wise guidance for career, people, leadership and life. But yeah, usually Tom Chapman Qantas will make sure you got me. And I've just put up a new profile photo today, so it does look like me today. So
look out for the smart man in the blue suit.
That's me.
And we're going to leave it on that. So listen, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, it's a pleasure having a chat with you.
Thank you.
And also for our listeners, if you're out there viewing on social media land, don't forget to download the Bondi Radio app and get listening. We've also got up on social media our previous Life Hack Show episodes. This one is episode 6. We've got a couple more to go, and thanks for joining us. We're going to head back into the music, and until next time, ciao, ciao.
Join us next week on the Life Hack Show with Greg Sellar.